It all started on what I thought would be a routine business dinner. A fancy restaurant. Polite smiles. Small talk over wine. I had no idea that a single conversation, spoken in a language my husband believed I didn't understand, would quietly detonate my entire marriage. But before we get there, let me ask you something. Where are you watching from today? Comment your country below. And if you enjoy slow burn stories with secrets, betrayals, and quiet revenge, make sure you subscribe. Because what I overheard that night changed everything. Now let me start from the beginning. My name is Sarah. For 12 years I believed I had a good marriage. Not perfect, but stable, respectable, good enough. My husband David was a senior manager at a tech company in the Bay Area. Ambitious, well paid, always climbing. I worked as a marketing coordinator at a smaller firm. Nothing glamorous, but I liked my job. It felt honest. We lived in a tidy townhouse in Mountain View. Took one vacation a year. Hosted the occasional dinner party. From the outside, we probably looked like a couple who had life figured out. But somewhere along the way, something shifted. I can't pinpoint the exact moment. Maybe it was 3 years ago when David got his last promotion. Or maybe it happened so slowly that I didn't realize I was living in a different marriage until I was already trapped inside it. David became busier. More important, at least that's how he described it. Late nights, conferences, business trips. And when he was home, he wasn't really home. He was glued to his phone, or exhausted, or distracted. Our conversations stopped being conversations. They became transactions. Did you pick up my dry cleaning? Don't forget dinner with the Johnsons on Saturday. Can you handle the lawn service? I don't have time. I told myself this was normal. This is what long marriages turn into, right? The passion fades. The routine takes over. You stop asking questions and just make it work. So I swallowed the loneliness, especially during those quiet evenings when David locked himself in his home office, and I sat alone in the living room, watching shows I didn't even care about. Then, about 18 months ago, something unexpected happened. One sleepless night, I was scrolling through my phone while David snored beside me, and an ad popped up. A free trial for a language learning app. Japanese. I froze. I had taken a semester of Japanese in college, back when I was younger, curious, and full of impractical dreams. I'd loved it. The structure, the beauty, the way the language forced you to see the world differently. But then I met David, got married, started working. That part of me got filed away under things adults don't have time for. Still, on a whim, I downloaded the app. Just to see. Just curiosity. The hiragana came back instantly. Then the katakana. Muscle memory I didn't know I still had. Within weeks I was hooked. Every night while David worked late or watched financial news, I sat at the kitchen table with my earbuds in, learning, practicing, remembering who I used to be. I subscribed to podcasts, watched Japanese dramas with subtitles. Then without them, booked online tutoring sessions, joined study groups. I didn't tell David, not because I was hiding something, but because I'd learned what happened when I shared things he didn't value. 3 years earlier, I'd mentioned wanting to take a photography class. He laughed, not cruelly, just casually. Sarah, you take pictures with your iPhone like everyone else. You don't need a class. And when would you even have time? That laugh stayed with me, so I learned to keep my interests quiet. It was easier than defending them. Japanese became my secret, my private world, and I was good at it, really good. I practiced every day, sometimes 2 or 3 hours. By the end of a year, I could understand conversational Japanese fluently. Not perfectly, but well enough. Movies, podcasts, conversations with tutors. Each new word felt like reclaiming a piece of myself I thought I'd lost. Proof that I was still capable of growth. Still more than just David's wife. Then one evening in late September, everything shifted again. David came home early. He looked energized, excited. A version of him I hadn't seen in months. "Sarah, great news," he said. loosening his tie as he walked into the kitchen where I was cooking dinner. We're close to finalizing a partnership with the Japanese tech company. This could be huge. The CEO is visiting next week. He paused, then added casually, I'm taking him to dinner at Hashiri. Then he looked at me. You'll need to come. I smiled, nodded, agreed, and stepped unknowingly toward a dinner that would expose exactly how little my husband thought of me, and how badly he'd underestimated who I really was. I looked up from the vegetables I was chopping. A business dinner? I repeated. David nodded like it was obvious. Yeah. Tanaka-san specifically asked if I was married. Japanese business culture. They like to know you're stable, family-oriented. It's good optics. He opened the refrigerator, grabbed a beer, already mentally moving on. You'll just need to look nice, he added. Smile. Be charming. You know, the usual. Something about the way he said the usual tightened in my chest. Like I was a role he'd cast me in years ago, and I was expected to hit my marks without question. I pushed the feeling down. Sure, I said. Of course. When? Next Thursday. 7 p.m. He barely looked up. Wear that navy dress. The one with the sleeves. Conservative but elegant. Then he paused. Sarah, he said, turning to look at me directly for the first time. Tanaka doesn't speak much English. I'll be doing most of the talking in Japanese. You'll probably be pretty bored, but just smile through it. Okay. My heart skipped. You speak Japanese? I asked carefully. Picked it up, he said casually, but there was pride in his voice. Working with our Tokyo office over the years. I'm pretty fluent now. He took a sip of his beer. It's one of the reasons they're considering me for the VP position. Not many executives here can negotiate in Japanese. He didn't ask if I spoke it. Didn't wonder if I might understand. Didn't even consider the possibility. Why would he? In his mind, I was just the wife. The quiet one. The one who smiled while important people talked. I turned back to my cutting board, my hands moving automatically. That sounds wonderful, honey, I said evenly. I'll be there. After he left the room, I stood there for a long moment, staring at nothing. My mind was racing. An opportunity had just dropped into my lap. A rare one. A chance to listen. To really listen. To hear how David spoke when he believed I was invisible. How he presented himself. How he talked about our life when he thought I couldn't understand a word. Part of me felt guilty for even thinking this way. Like I was doing something wrong. But a bigger part of me, the part that had been shrinking quietly for years, needed to know. The week crawled by. I spent every spare moment reviewing business Japanese. Polite forms. Honorifics. Corporate phrasing. I didn't know what I expected to hear. Maybe nothing. Maybe I was overthinking everything. Maybe I was just paranoid, searching for cracks that didn't exist. Thursday arrived. I wore the navy dress just like he asked. Modest heels. Simple jewelry. I looked at myself in the mirror and saw exactly what David wanted to see. A presentable wife. Someone who wouldn't embarrass him. The restaurant was in San Francisco. Modern. Expensive. The kind of place with a months-long waiting list. David had secured the reservation with the company account. We arrived 15 minutes early. He checked his reflection in his phone camera. Straightened his already straight tie. Remember, he said as we walked in, just be pleasant. Don't try to participate in the business talk. I nodded. If Tanaka-san addresses you in English, keep your answers brief, he continued. We need him focused on the partnership, not distracted by small talk. I swallowed the bitter taste rising in my throat. Tanaka-san was already seated. He stood when we approached, mid-50s, silver-rimmed glasses, impeccably tailored suit. David bowed slightly. I followed his lead. They exchanged greetings in Japanese. Formal. Polite. I smiled, looked appropriately lost, and slid into the chair David pulled out for me. At first, the conversation stayed in English. Polite compliments about the restaurant. Comments about Tanaka-san's hotel. Light discussion about international partnerships. His English, I noticed, was actually quite good. Better than David had suggested. Accented, yes, but confident. Then the menus arrived. And naturally, effortlessly, they switched to Japanese. David's fluency was impressive. I had to admit that. He spoke smoothly, confidently, completely at ease. They discussed projections, market expansion, technical specifications. I understood enough to follow, though not every detail. I sat quietly, sipped my water, smiled when they glanced my way, playing my part perfectly. Then Tanaka-san turned slightly toward me and spoke in Japanese. Polite question. He was asking what I did for work. Before I could even pretend not to understand, David answered for me. In Japanese, he said, "Oh, Sarah works in marketing, but it's just a small company. Nothing serious. More of a hobby, really. Something to keep her busy. She mainly takes care of our home." I kept my face neutral, but inside something twisted hard and sharp. A hobby. I had worked in marketing for 15 years, managed successful campaigns, built long-term client relationships, and in one smooth sentence, my husband had reduced my entire career to a pastime. I smiled, because that's what I was there to do. And as I sat there, silent and composed, I realized something terrifying and clarifying at the same time. This dinner wasn't just about business. It was about who David thought I was, and how little he believed I mattered. Tanaka-san nodded politely and didn't press the question. The dinner moved on. Course after course arrived. Each played a small work of art. I ate slowly, stayed quiet, and listened. Really listened. David was different in Japanese. More confident. More aggressive. More impressed with himself. He exaggerated his role in projects. Took credit for team efforts. Positioned himself as the linchpin of his department's success. It wasn't outrageous. Just subtle enough to pass. But it was noticeable. The David speaking Japanese was a slightly inflated version of the man I lived with. Sharper, louder, more self-important. Then the conversation shifted. Tanaka-san mentioned work-life balance, the importance of family support in demanding careers. David laughed. The sound made my stomach tighten. To be honest, David said in Japanese, his tone casual, dismissive, my wife doesn't really understand the business world. I felt my pulse in my ears. She's content with her simple life, he continued. I handle all the important decisions. The finances. The career planning. I kept smiling. She's mostly there for appearances, he said. Keeps the house running. Looks good at events like this. My fingers tightened around my water glass. It works well for me, David added, almost amused. I don't have to worry about a wife who demands too much attention or has ambitions that get in the way. I thought the glass might shatter in my hand. Tanaka-san made a neutral sound. Non-committal. I watched his face closely and caught a flicker of something. Discomfort. Maybe disapproval. But he didn't challenge David. Instead, he gently redirected the conversation, asking about David's long-term goals. The VP position is basically mine, David said without hesitation. And after that, I'm aiming for the C-suite within 5 years. He spoke like it was already decided. I've been positioning myself carefully, he continued, building the right relationships. Then he said something that made my blood turn to ice. My wife doesn't know this yet, but I've been moving some assets around, setting up offshore accounts. Just smart financial planning. I felt dizzy. If my career requires relocation or major changes, David went on, I need flexibility. I can't be tied down by joint accounts or having to get her approval. I sat there smiling blankly, while my husband calmly described financial maneuvers that sounded a lot like preparation for a future where I wasn't included, or at least wasn't protected. But he wasn't finished. Tanaka-san asked about stress, how David managed the pressure of his position. David laughed again. This time it was uglier. I have my outlets, he said. There's someone at work. Jennifer. She's in finance. My chest tightened. We've been seeing each other for about 6 months, he continued casually. My wife has no idea. 6 months. Honestly, it's been good for me, David said. Jennifer understands my world, my ambitions. I felt like I was floating outside my body. She's going places, he added. We talk strategy, make plans. I kept my posture perfect. It's refreshing, he said. After coming home to someone who can't discuss anything more complex than what's for dinner. I didn't move, didn't blink, didn't react. Years of learning how to be small and pleasant held me in place. An affair. Offshore accounts. My career dismissed as a hobby. 12 years of marriage. And this was how he saw me. This was how he spoke about me when he thought I couldn't understand. Tanaka-san was clearly uncomfortable now. I saw it in the way he shifted. The way his answers became shorter. More formal. He steered the conversation back to neutral business topics. The warmth was gone. Eventually, the dinner ended. In the restaurant lobby, we exchanged goodbyes. Tanaka-san bowed to me and said in careful English, "It was a pleasure meeting you, Mrs. Sarah. I wish you well." Something in his eyes, a softness, made me wonder if he understood. If he was as disturbed as I was. The drive home was quiet. David hummed along with the radio, relaxed, satisfied. That went well, he said. I think we're going to close this deal. Tanaka seemed impressed. That's wonderful, I replied. My voice sounded hollow even to me. At home, David kissed my cheek absently, told me he had emails to catch up on. Then he disappeared into his office. I went upstairs, closed the bedroom door, and stood there in the silence. Then I did something I never imagined I would do. I pulled out my phone, and I called Emma. Emma was my college roommate, my best friend once, before distance, before life, before David's subtle discouragement of my friendships pulled us apart. She was a family law attorney now, had been through her own divorce 5 years earlier. We'd reconnected recently. A few messages. Nothing deep. She answered on the second ring. Sarah, she said, surprise in her voice. It was almost 11 at night. Emma, I said, and my voice broke. I need a lawyer. We talked for 2 hours. I told her everything. The dinner, the conversation in Japanese, the offshore accounts, the affair, the years of feeling invisible, dismissed, diminished. Emma listened. Not a word of interruption. Her legal mind working quietly, methodically as I poured out the truth. When I finished, she leaned back and said softly, Sarah, I need you to breathe. Can you do that for me? I inhaled slow and deep. Good, she said. Now listen carefully. What he's doing with those offshore accounts could be illegal. Definitely unethical. If he's hiding marital assets in anticipation of a divorce, or just to control the finances, that's financial fraud. And we can use that. I hesitated. But I don't have proof. It was just conversation. Emma tilted her head. Did you record the dinner? I felt foolish. No, I didn't think. I was just trying to process what I was hearing. That's okay, she said. We'll work with what we have. But here's the plan. Don't confront him yet. I know you want to, but we need to be strategic. Starting tomorrow, she instructed, I was to gather everything I could. Bank statements, tax returns, investment records, emails, photographs of documents, anything. If he's moving money, there will be a paper trail, and we will find it. Emma, I'm scared, I admitted. I know, honey, but you're smart. You're capable. You just proved it by learning an entire language without him knowing. You can do this. And you're not alone anymore. After we hung up, I sat on the edge of the bed. Finally, I let myself feel it all. Rage, betrayal, grief, fear. But beneath it, something sharper. A cold, clear determination. I wasn't going to be the decorative wife anymore. I wasn't going to be dismissed, diminished, or cheated on. I was going to take back control of my life, even if it meant burning down everything I'd built to do it. The next morning I called in sick. David barely noticed, just grunted as he left for work. The moment his car pulled away, I began searching. His home office was a treasure trove of meticulous files, bank statements, tax returns, investment accounts, 3 years' worth of records all neatly organized. I photographed everything, uploaded it to a private cloud drive Emma had set up, and then I saw it. 2 accounts I'd never known about. Regular transfers. $50,000 siphoned over the past 8 months to a bank in the Cayman Islands. Our joint savings had been slowly drained without my knowledge. I felt sick, but I kept photographing, kept documenting. Emma had stressed thoroughness and I was being thorough. I found emails too. Investment properties I hadn't known existed. Accounts in his name only. And then, Jennifer. Printed exchanges carelessly left behind. The content was damning, romantic, sexual. Plans for a future that didn't include me. One email stood out. We can stop hiding. The Sarah situation. That's what I've become. A problem to handle. I spent 6 weeks quietly gathering evidence. Living with a man I now saw clearly for the first time. Every smile was a lie. Every casual touch made my skin crawl. But I played my part. Cooked dinners. Asked about his day. Pretended nothing had changed. Emma was building the case. I met with her twice a week. Brought new documentation. Discussed strategy. We planned to file for divorce. And simultaneously report his financial misconduct to his company's ethics board. The offshore accounts violated policy. He could lose not just our marriage but his career. Are you sure you want to go this far? Emma asked during one session. The company piece will be nuclear. He'll lose everything, she said. I told her calmly. He said it himself. He's been preparing for this. I'm just moving first. We decided on a Friday. Emma filed the divorce papers Thursday afternoon. Friday morning I dressed for work as usual. But instead of going to my office I went to Emma's. David's HR would receive our evidence package at 9 a.m. The divorce papers would be served at 9:30. I sat in Emma's conference room drinking coffee I couldn't taste. Watching the clock. My phone was off. I didn't want to see his calls or texts when he realized what was happening. At 11 o'clock, Emma received confirmation. Paper served. Evidence received. David's employer had immediately placed him on administrative leave pending investigation. How do you feel? Emma asked, her voice tight with tension. I admitted quietly, terrified but ready. I stayed at Emma's that night. She had a guest room and had told me I could stay as long as I needed. We ordered takeout. Drank wine. For the first time in years I could breathe. David tried calling 47 times that first day. Left voicemails ranging from confused to angry to pleading. I didn't listen. Emma did, documenting everything. On Saturday, escorted by Emma and a police officer, just as a precaution, I returned to the house to collect my belongings. David was there. Unshaven. Rumpled. Red-eyed. Sarah, please, he started. I held up my hand. Don't. Just don't try to explain. Explain what? He said. That you've been cheating? Hiding money? Calling me too simple to understand your world? I fixed him with a calm stare. I heard every word at that dinner, David. Every single word. His face went white. You don't speak Japanese? I've been fluent for over a year, I said. Funny how you never asked. Never wondered what I did with my time while you were busy with work. Or Jennifer. He sank onto the couch, shoulders slumped. The company put me on leave, he said. They're investigating. I could lose my job. That's not my problem anymore, I said, my voice steady. I started walking toward the stairs, toward the bedroom I needed to pack. Wait. His voice cracked, desperate. We can fix this. Couples therapy. I'll end things with Jennifer. We can work through this. I turned back and looked at him. Really looked. This man, the one I'd spent 12 years with. The one I'd loved. The one I believed loved me. You don't want to fix this. You want to fix your career. Your image. Your finances. You're not sorry you hurt me. You're sorry you got caught. That's not true, he started. I cut him off. Calm sharp. At that dinner, you told Tanaka-san I was just for appearances. That I was too simple, too unambitious. That I was essentially a live-in housekeeper who looked good at events. Do you even remember saying that? His silence was answer enough. I'm done being small for you, David. Done being the convenient wife who doesn't demand too much. File your counter motions if you want. Fight the divorce. But you're not going to win. And you're not getting away with hiding our assets. I spent 2 hours packing. He didn't try to stop me. Just sat on the couch staring at nothing. The divorce took 8 months. California law required a 6-month waiting period after filing. We spent those months negotiating the settlement. David's company investigation found sufficient evidence of ethical violations. They terminated him. He eventually found another job. Lower level. Lower pay. The offshore accounts had to be disclosed and divided. The properties I hadn't known about became part of the marital assets. In the end, I walked away with half of everything he tried to hide. Plus spousal support for 3 years while I rebuilt my career. But the best part, the thing I never expected, happened about 2 months into the divorce process. Tanaka-san reached out through LinkedIn. His message was brief, warm. He'd heard about the divorce. He wondered if I might be interested in a position with his company. They were opening a U.S. office. They needed someone who understood both American marketing and Japanese business culture. My unique skill set, he wrote, would be invaluable. I met with him and his team. This time I spoke Japanese from the first moment. His eyes lit up with genuine respect. And maybe a little amusement. A recognition that I'd quietly fooled everyone at that dinner. I knew, he said in Japanese at the end of the interview at the restaurant. The way you held yourself when David spoke about you. I saw the understanding in your eyes for just a moment. I am glad you found your strength. They offered me the position. Senior Marketing Director. Salary triple what I'd been making. I accepted. I'm 63 now. That all happened over 20 years ago, but I remember every detail. The divorce, as painful as it was, gave me my life back. I ran that marketing department for 15 years before retiring, traveled to Japan a dozen times, made genuine friends, became someone who existed beyond being somebody's wife. I never remarried, dated occasionally, had one serious relationship that lasted 5 years, ended amicably. But I never again made my world small to fit someone else's vision of who I should be. David sent me an email about 3 years after the divorce. He'd remarried, apologized for how things ended, said he hoped I was well. I never responded. Some chapters don't need epilogues. I still study Japanese, now purely for pleasure. I read novels, watch films, tutor young professionals who want to learn. The language that started as a secret escape became the thing that saved me, showed me I was capable of more than I'd been allowing myself to believe. That dinner at Hashiri was the worst and best night of my life. Worst because I heard truths that shattered my reality. Best because it finally pushed me to act. To stop accepting less than I deserved. So if you're listening, if you're in a marriage where you feel invisible, where your interests are dismissed, where you're made to feel small, pay attention to that feeling. Learn the language. Gather the evidence. Find your Emma. And when you're ready, take back your life. It won't be easy. It will hurt. There will be nights where you question everything. But on the other side of that pain is a life where you get to be fully yourself. Where your voice matters. Where you're not just decorative but essential. And that life is worth fighting for. If you're still here with me, thank you for staying. Maybe this is the moment you decide to subscribe. So you don't miss the stories that speak softly but stay with you. Stories about chosen family, second chances, and the kind of love that doesn't shout to be heard. Until next time, this is the Old Woman's Stories, reminding you that some endings aren't endings at all. They're beginnings quietly waiting to be noticed.